Welcome. This is OptixEQ. I'm John Doyle with Emily Gullikson, and this is the second jewel of the Triple Crown. We're going to review the Preakness. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about this race.
Okay, yeah. I think Emily has some strong opinions, so I'm going to kind of stay out of her way. What I have up here right now is the plot, and if you kind of look at the plot, and if you're familiar with plots, the number 7, Justify, who's the big favorite, has really a dominant plot position, Emily. He's just up there in the upper left-hand quadrant, a square, really not much pace other than him in that race. It's kind of his race to lose from a plot kind of positioning. So, what do you,
And I think the grid backs that up as well in the optics figures. That clearly he's the horse to beat in here.
yeah. And the one thing is the other horse that looks pretty good, if you're going to look at this, would be the number 5, Good Magic. But I think you have some issues with him. So why don't we dive into the grid, and let's just kind of do this. How do you want to start? You want to look at the favorite first, and he's kind of
Yeah,
not.
let's talk about Justify first. I mean, we both think that he's logical in here, and I was vocal earlier in this week watching him kind of come out of the race and not too thrilled with the way he looks. I mean, that's still somewhat of a concern, but I have seen him since. I think he does look better, and also I just don't think if he wasn't right, he wouldn't be running. And I've an athlete. I've been an athlete. I've played bumps, bruises. I've played broken bones. So I know what you can get away with something that's just not quite perfect, but nothing that's going to keep you out. So that aside, I think he is the horse to beat. I mean, he's the fastest horse early. He's got good finish. He can handle it off track, and yeah, I just think he's legitimate again. We'll get into it. Because I have a little reservation and he has a short price, and that's just the kind of player I am. I think I'm going to go kind of a different direction, maybe as a win bet, but he's legit.
Yeah, you don't want to be betting a lot of money into this race, but if you want to take your shot against him, don't go crazy, because you can get rewarded if he doesn't run his race. It just seems like these days we're missing like the Alan Jerkins and Frank Martin, guys that used to like throw a horse in here, kind of sniff this, where a horse might be a little bit not at his best, and try to sneak a long shot in here. And the field came up really short in terms of number of horses and stuff. That I think everyone just kind of has the plan now is if they have a decent horse and he doesn't win the Kentucky Derby, it's right to the Belmont and the Travers, and you kind of look down the road. It's kind
I
of.
think let's kind of go back to the plot real quick and just kind of reference the pace scenario in here, because as you can see, I mean, Justified is the speed of speed. He's fastest early, faster to the second call, and he's a square, so he's got finish. But the horse like number 4, Diamond King, number 6, Tenfold, they're on that left side of the y-axis, so they do have some speed. And even a horse like, I know he's not in quadrant 1, but even a horse like Sporting Chance, I mean, he comes out of that one-turn Pat Day Mile, and that was a pretty fast pace. He's got some speed. I don't know. Maybe they want to go with him, and what other chance?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the D. Wade Lucas taking a shot at him. So I think it's interesting, like what the jockeys are going to do. I don't really know. I mean, I can't imagine Quip going after him, being that it's the same owners. I don't think they would do that. I think they'd be more interested in, if they break on top and get an easy lead, I think they'd be okay with that. But I think they'd also be content sitting right behind Justified and maybe run 1-2 in that direction. Whereas a horse like, Sporting Chance, I think, would have nothing to lose going after Justified, or at least trying, or Diamond King has got to try, maybe he wants to get cute. Tenfold maybe not as quick, but at least he's got to be somewhat forwardly placed, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's right. I mean, if you look up on the Optics run styles, they're all that similar run style, like an early presser type. So just because they're below, on the y-axis, the below Justified, doesn't mean that they're not going to be trying for the front end. It just means they may have a lot of difficulty keeping up with them as the race progresses to the second call. So that's what that really means when you see the horses kind of laid out. They're kind of, a little bit closer. Again, we said, if you look on the vertical line down here, that's the first call. They all want to kind of be forwardly placed, but Justified kind of starts dominating those presser types. So is there a potential for horses that are a little bit off that pace? Those would be, Good Magic, maybe Bravazzo you mentioned, and Lone Sailor. Are those the horses that are maybe in the second flight who could maybe do something and affect the outcome, late? That's
Yeah, I guess that the kind of natural one is to go to the second choice, Good Magic, because I don't think anybody has too much of an argument that he's probably the second best horse in this race. We kind of talked prior to hitting record on this, and I told John sort of my one crazy opinion here that I'm gonna stick with and be right or wrong on is that I'm against this horse. And I think he ran a really hard race last time. Unlike his previous starts, he's kind of able to relax early and just sort of let the race happen in front of him and then pull the trigger when the time is right. And last time out in the Kentucky Derby, he was forced to get into the race early. He's chasing Justified. He's on a fairly good part of the track, chasing behind, but working to stay in close, keeping pace through the middle part of the race, and then having to really run late in order to, maintain that second position coming down to the wire. And I just think that's a really taxing effort. And I think that this pace scenario, as you can see on the plot, is going to actually work perfectly for him. But he may just be a little bit zapped from that race. And, especially if there's a scenario where, horses decide to just not let Justify go. I mean, we've seen this many times. They just let him go and kind of like, well, I'll hope for second, play kind of that part of the race. I think Good Magic could be a little bit vulnerable that way. Or if they try a similar tactic and stay up close early, then he could be really in trouble. So that's, there's no fun for me or anybody going, Justified, Good Magic, Exacta. Those are just not the type of place for me. So my opinion here is to just try to get him out of the trifecta.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do something like that. If you're going to bet this race, that has to kind of be your approach. If not, pass. So if it's not Good Magic, who is it, Emily? Who you're looking at as potential upsetters, or at least horses that could beat Good Magic for a second?
Well, I've been the Bravazzo fan all the way through, so it's hard for me to go against him now. But it's more than that. It's not just because I've kind of been following this horse, but I think his trip in the Kentucky Derby is sort of a sneaky trip and not really getting talked about because he's wide the entire race. He's wide throughout, and when you watch the finish of where the horses are coming from, the horses that are passing him, at some point of the race, those horses were able to save ground or at least somewhat stay on those inside paths. And he's completely the opposite. He's on the outside paths from start to finish. And still stayed on. And he stayed on best of those horses that were outside. Noble Indy, Bolt d'Oro, Long Shot Combatant. Those horses that were outside finished well back. So I think his trip is a little bit sneaky in here. And, if they do push, a couple of the jockeys decide to get cute, or even a stablemate decides to go for it, I think it'll help his chances. He's also a horse that doesn't have to really be too far back. I mean, he's one close up to the lead. I think he's better with a little bit of a target in front of him. And, he's just, I kind of want to go back to him in here. I guess the short rest kind of gives me a little bit of a pause, but, he's a big enough number to try to find out.
But and you had liked him a little bit in the Derby too, and you were talking about his pattern, where he ran poorly, then came back and ran a good race at Oaklawn, then came back and then he won the Fairgrounds race. It looks like he's kind of on that pattern again, where he might improve again, right? Just based on the fact that he kind of like, I think you were on that last time where He kind of ran a good race at Oaklawn, came back, and then he won that race close to the pace in the Fairgrounds race. And then he kind of backed off that. He's ran better in the Derby, right? You kind of chronicled his bad trip or his wide trip. And then, maybe he improves again here, and that kind of could put him into the mix, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna regress in the way that I think Good Magic is probably sitting where if he's going to go backwards. I even think a repeat would be tough. So I think he's got to move forward, or even, this race being soft, one of his similar efforts just might be good enough, to kind of get him there.
Yeah, and in my opinion, he gets a rider upgrade too.
Yeah, well, totally. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Agreed. You want to talk about that? Because I know you're a fan.
No. You can talk about it, but Saez is just someone. If you're a gambler, you like Luis Saez because he's always trying. That's basically it. And I know Contenders is a nice rider. He you see him a lot more than I do. He's kind of based in Woodbine, so. But I mean, I just comparatively, I think it's a major upgrade for this horse.
Yeah, I think for this horse, I think sort of the same thing. I think it is, he's a little bit more aggressive. He can be a little bit more tactical as far as his timing. He rides not necessarily Pimlico, but at least east a little bit more. And Contreras is going to stick with Sporting Chance, the other Lucas, and I thought that he gave that horse the horse didn't have a good trip, but I thought he made the most of it with that trip. So. Nothing really, no knocks on him, but I think it is an improvement for this horse.
Yeah. So Bravazzo is the horse. Let's just kind of talk about some others. I'm just going to kind of go down the list. I'm going to start with the one horse Quip. He's a gritty horse. What's your thoughts on him? He kind of didn't make the cut. Or he was scratched. I forget now. Did he make the cut at the Derby, or he just?
Yeah. He made the cut, and they decided to wait for the Preakness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my concerns with that, I don't know what your concerns. My concerns with him is he likes to be forwardly placed, and if he is, he can kind of dig in. One race where he wasn't was the Jockey Club, was kind of a bulky field when he was a 2-year-old, and he was kind of like nowhere to be found late. So my concern is he doesn't keep up with Justified, and you can see that if you go to the plot, he's going to be well below him here into the second call. I'm just concerned like he just doesn't keep up. That's my concern with Quip.
Yeah, he definitely has to move forward, and he's on that pattern. He could have some more upside, but you just kind of look at it, as far as the horse that he has to be is a horse that has the same running style, which happens to be for the same owner. So it gets into a lot of tricky things. Obviously, they're not going to engage, right?
Right.
Like they're not going to duel.
They can't. Yeah.
That would be great for Bravazzo, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think one of two scenarios is that Quip goes, and if he can go out in front, and they kind of just the other jockeys are just sort of more focused on Justify, and Quip somehow just finds a gold rail and sneaks away and wires the field, that type of thing. Or, they sit inside and they track, they let Justify go out in front, and they just kind of track inside, and then he digs in and beats the other horses for, place. That's kind of like, the sort of two things that I see. I think he's got that grit. He's got a forwardly placed running style. He's pointed to this race. So, all systems go on that end. It's, a matter of good enough, really.
Yeah. I just don't see him wiring, Justified or anybody in this race.
Yeah, no, I think it would definitely take a trap to help.
Exactly. The 3 is the 2 is Lone Sailor. That's the kind of deep closer from Tom Amos, who got some flow and kind of did some closing late. You have more of a stronger opinion about his race than I do, but maybe he can pick up some pieces if like you say, some of those pressers tire late. But I see him more for underneath than anything.
Yeah, I'm just not excited about him, and I wasn't that crazy about his effort in the Derby. He broke slow, so that's his own issue. And he's done that in the past. We can see a few slogs in his grid, so he's going to be far back. While we have some contention on, the speed rating is still low, and he's not going to get the type of flow that he had in the Derby. They're not going to go that fast. And he was able to save ground the entire way. He did have a little, we've got it in the grid, room. He had to kind of slightly take up on the turn, but able to stay inside. And then when he was clear in the stretch, he just didn't really show like that kind of kick, the race is something like he was just kind of like one pace going through. And I expected him to at least pass Bravazzo, because Bravazzo was on that sort of that, getting tired and had been running wide the entire time. He never did. So I'm just not, and I think he's a horse that people will be like, oh, he's the third key. He's the key to the try and super, where I think it's going to be more of the, the pace setters kind of hanging on.
Yeah. He did the same thing in the Louisiana Derby, where he looked like he was going to blow right by Noble Indy, and they couldn't sustain it. So there might be like a class issue, distance limitations with this horse. He's a nice horse, but again, I think I would still like to see him on turf. That's just, and I know Optics Notes like to see him on turf too. You can see the turf projections there. So maybe we'll later in the year, if he's not successful here again. He does get a rider change. He does get a rider upgrade from Graham to Ortiz, to Irad Ortiz, who's a very good turf rider. So very good rider. So that's just something you want to just be aware of. I don't know what that's going to do, but probably just hurts his price more than anything. So we're going to move on to the 3. I think we talked a little bit about Sporting Chance. Had some trouble in the Pad Day. I liked him in that race. I don't see him as this kind of classic distance horse. I still, I kind of see him more for kind of that distance, 8 to up to 9 furlongs, maybe. It's stretching it. What's your thoughts on Sporting Chance, Emily? The other Lucas.
Yeah, I think I have a hard time seeing a scenario that he wins. If you're like looking at it from that perspective, again, it's going to be tough for him to wire the field, the distance, tracking from off the pace, would need a lot of things to go right in front of him. I'm interested to see if they just decide to take it to Justify early and just see what happens on that front.
Yeah, maybe you could help the other Lucas. Yeah. So and Diamond King is the other potential pace horse in this race. Again, he's not as fast as Justified. He ran big in a non-graded stakes, and I just think it's kind of like local. He ran over Laurel, Maryland. He's a Maryland kind of. It seems like he's been running in Maryland, and maybe just kind of takes a shot here.
I think he goes to the spot because it's very very logical and take a shot here. But even if you look at like the grades and the race he just won, and then you go back to his other stake race at Laurel, those are his B's, and then in graded stake company, and obviously the race at Churchill is a draw line through, but Swale a little bit below. So I think on class he's just a little bit on the softer side, and again, like he's not going to be Justified his own game.
Yeah. So the number 5 is Good Magic. We discussed. 6 is Tenfold. Okay, and it's quite, he's a little bit interesting to me, I'd be honest with you. Just because he's lightly raced, right? And they got him right into a grade 1. He didn't run that badly in the Arkansas Derby, right?
So I don't know, but he ran well.
Yeah. And, it gets back to Santana, who's, the regular first rider for Asmussen. In a race like this, you can do worse. He might get a decent trip in this race. Behind the speeds, if he can kind of maybe just trip it out, he can contend for a piece.
I agree with all of that. I think he's maybe a race away from like a winning effort, but he's going to give a good account in this spot.
Yeah, he's obviously got potential, right? This is he's run 3 times, so and for him to run that well in a grade 1 after just 2 races. He's got the Apollo curse, I guess. At least that's gone. We'll have to next time I hear Apollo, the only thing I want to know is Apollo 13 on TV. I don't want to hear anything about Apollo anymore. Justified we talked about, and Bravazzo we talked about. I think we got the field, Emily. So I think what I'm hearing from you is that maybe trying to play against Good Magic here, and Bravazzo is kind of your key to underneath or. Potential even like maybe a small win bet. But there's very, very difficult ways to play this race. It's difficult to play this race, with such an outstanding favorite. So you got to create value somewhere. So Emily's suggesting Good Magic might be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. That kind of wraps it up. That was completely different than the Derby, right? A lot less to go over. Check us out on OptixEQ.com. We'll also have a Preakness special where we're going to be actually having not only all the information you see here, but analysis of the Black Eyed Susan, this race, horse by horse with our wager labels and some spot plays on those 2 days. So thanks, Emily. Thanks. Great talking to you.
Absolutely.
And take care.